Well, good morning. Welcome to City Hall. We'll get started this morning we have Pastor Nathan Tate from the Antioch Christian Church for the invocation, and then I'll ask Councilwoman Meg Salyer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. As the pastor comes up, I'd ask you to keep the family of our fallen officer on the police department in your prayers.
Almighty God, we come before you this morning and we invoke the power of your name into these proceedings, but also, Lord, into our lives. I pray for the protection of our city. I pray for the protection of these men and women who serve and who lead. Lord, we also pray for the comfort for the family of this fallen one among us. And Lord, we just pray that you would be with them. And Lord, we invite your presence, Lord, into our lives and, Lord, into these proceedings, that our decisions at this level, at the state level, even at the national level, Father, will be made based on what is honoring to you, Lord, what is in your word, and, Lord, what glorifies your name. Lord, we love you and we thank you for all that you've done for us. It's in your Son's name we pray.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with a resolution. Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month, Alexander Keys. Alexander, come up here and join me. We have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Alexander R. Keys has been a city employee for 2.5 years and is a plumbing inspector 1 in the construction inspection section of the Development Center Division of the Development Services Department. Whereas Alexander Keys has an excellent understanding of plumbing and plumbing codes and constantly works to improve his knowledge of both. Whereas Alexander Keys works hard to keep up with his assigned workload, which includes several large commercial projects like the Chesapeake Energy Complex, and does an exceptional job of also handling the heavy workload of the Devon Energy Complex. Whereas Alexander Keys believes in providing excellent customer service and protecting the public's safety. He stays focused on doing a good job and keeps his inspection to 1 to 2 days out. Whereas Alexander Keys is a team player who can always be called upon to perform special tasks. He's dependable and never complains about his busy workload. Whereas this council desires to recognize Alexander R. Keys for his dedication, enthusiasm, and commitment to the citizens of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Alexander R. Keys, October 2012, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Resolution. We need a motion. Motion to second. Cast your vote. And it passes. Congratulations. When the city has over 4,000 employees, you can imagine what it takes to be Employee of the Month. And with what you do with the construction stuff we've got going on, I can imagine you're a fairly busy fellow. So it's very commendable that you do that in the way that you get recognized for it. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say?
I'm real humbled by this. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you again. Moving on from Office of the Mayor, we have item 3B and C, which are a series of appointments. Motion and a second. Any questions? Comments? Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item 4 is a Journal of Council proceeding. We're receiving the ones for October 9th and approving the ones for October 2nd. Cast your vote. And they're approved. Item 5 is request for uncontested continuances. City Manager.
A couple this morning. One on page 7 on the consent docket. We ask that item 6W be stricken. We need to rework that and bring that back. So that's item 6W, a change order on page 7. And then moving to page 12, under item 8D1 this morning, unsecured item E2205, South Independence. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item G, 1455 Lenora Avenue. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item H, 1318 Linwood Boulevard. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item J, 1200 North Robinson. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item L, 1400 Northwest 6th Street. We ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item U, 2841 Southwest 53rd Street. We ask that be stricken. Again, the owner has secured.
Do we have any other requests for uncontested continuances? We'll recess the council meeting and convene as Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. We have several items. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. Several items. Any comments or questions? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Adjourn the OCPPA and convene as Oklahoma City Environmentalist Trust. We have one item. Any comments or questions? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting. I'd like to move up one item real quick. 8E1, revocable right-of-way use permit, High Plains Events to hold the Gazette's Halloween parade.
80.
Ward
Thank you.
6.
Would you all like to come forward and tell us a little bit about the event?
Good morning. I'm Linda Mioli, Vice President of the Oklahoma Gazette. We will be celebrating our 6th annual Gazette's Halloween Parade on Saturday evening, October 27th. We have a new route this year, mainly because the city is growing and there is now construction on what used to be our de-staging area on 12th and Walker, or there will be construction on there fairly soon with the edge. So the route will now be kind of a square. We will come down Broadway, go across 10th Street, then come down Walker, go across 6th, and come back north on Broadway and wind up in the same staging area. We will be de-staging, so I think that will be a lot more efficient and easier on traffic control and on the participants in the parade itself. So, come on down, all of you. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Do we have anybody for the other two revocables here? Okay, why don't you come on up? We'll go ahead and do yours while we're at it.
Good morning. On October the 27th as well, it's going to be a busy day here in the city of Oklahoma City. We are holding our 19th annual Race for the Cure this year. Very excited that we are continuing to move forward with the Race for the Cure. So far, our race participants at this time, I pulled a report this morning, and we actually have 10,000 participants registered. So we still have 2 weeks to go, so we think that this year we will be have just as many people as we did last year at the event. Additionally, we have also had the pleasure of meeting several male breast cancer survivors this year that will actually be honored at the race. So our focus not only are women, but also on men that we are honoring on that day as well. So we are excited, and we appreciate everything that you all do for us and allowing us to continue on.
Thank you very much. We
Uh-huh,
appreciate it.
thank
That's
you.
October 27th in Bricktown.
Yes.
Skip,
Move it. Thank you so much.
we have a motion and a second. Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Meg, you want to go ahead and do Woofness on 9th Street? Got a second? Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move back to the consent docket.
I had two things, if I could, Mayor. 6M, if we could, and I'd also like to just mention or ask about the timing on 6X.
Okay, let's get a motion and second on it first.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any other than Councilwoman Salyer? Dave?
Vice Mayor, item K, please.
Okay. Any others? Meg, you want to get started?
If we could, and Roland, I wanted to talk about the Wesley housing project. And would you come forward, would you mind coming forward and telling us a little bit about the project? This is actually an item that we had seen previously, I think, under a different ownership group, and so we've had a little bit of change in the project, and thought we might just get a teeny briefing. Good morning.
Morning.
No, this is...
Good morning. I'm Roland Chupik. I'm Executive Director for Neighborhood Housing Service. I want to introduce to you Pete Marone of Comprise CDC. He is our partner and consultant in this project. So I will ask Pete if he will provide a brief overview for this project.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the council. We are proposing to acquire and rehabilitate Wesley Village Retirement Community located at 300 Northwest 12th Street in downtown Oklahoma City. Our plan is to substantially rehabilitate the project using low-income housing tax credits and tax-exempt bonds through the state of Oklahoma. Part of that approval process is a resolution of support from the City Council. So we come before you and ask that you approve that resolution. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
This is a really wonderful project. It's sort of tucked away in Heritage Hills. It's a project that certainly needs rehabilitation. It's been a cornerstone of the neighborhood for a long time, but it's time to have some. We really appreciate the partnership here, and I would move approval.
Second. I would just like to add
Oh,
that...
we don't need to do that.
Well, just as a comment, your reference to tucked away in the community, but there's also another very interesting feature about this project, and that is, and we commended you in our committee meeting, was the fact that this is a clear example of how mixed housing can really go forth in a community. And the individuals who have resided in the history of this building as far as residents is very interesting as it relates to the proximity of another community. And because of the challenges that some people have, the disabilities that some people have, and the income challenges, they have been able to provide a mainstay of human assistance and quality of life for those individuals. And so to know that you all are coming forth with a program that's not talking about changing that status as it relates to individuals who reside there in spite of the other higher income residents that reside in the area close to it is amazing, and I'm just really applauding you for taking on that type of a mission. And the provisions that you all have made to provide a temporary housing for those individuals under the construction stage of it, I think is also a very good part of your program that we mentioned in our committee. So I just wanted to commend you, and I hope that some of the other developers take heed to the fact that this can be done without having to have such a one-dimension project as far as mixed housing is concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see the building is going to continue to be used, because I was born in that hospital more years ago than I care to mention. But thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you have another item, Meg?
just briefly, I was just curious. Item 6X is a change order for one of our Project 180 packages, which is that right around City Hall, and I just wondered if we had an update, Eric, possibly on the timing of getting this completed.
I'd be happy to. I think what you'll find in your memo this morning is that it mentions a final completion date in the spring, or actually in May of 13, but I think you'll see substantial completion occur much before then. The paving on Package 5, which is the area predominantly around Civic Center, Music Hall, and City Hall, is virtually complete. There are a few panels of concrete left to be placed, but with that said, they're starting to work on the amenity zones, the areas with the trees, the benches, the bike racks, the landscaping. And those are the things that you're going to see over the next couple of months, and so I think you'll see tremendous changes here as we go into the winter. But you can expect to see it virtually complete. We're going to actually open up Walker to two-way here shortly. We're working on traffic signal poles for that, so we'll take that on up to Couch Drive, but ultimately we'll make it to Robert S. Kerr. But all that's just in short order.
And how about Robinson? Is that funny little stretch between Park?
Robinson's progressing, and it's actually not Package 5, so that's in one of our previous packages, but it's progressing as well. We've run into some minor utility issues again, but those are being reconciled now, and so you can expect that to also be complete in just the next month, maybe. So,
and that single block converted back into, or converted to two-way?
We're getting very close to that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, questions? David, you had one?
Item K is the professional services agreement with the South Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce to work in the area of economic development along I-240. And we have some representatives from the Chamber here, as well as the consultant that will be working with them. Just to give a quick history, ever since I-240 was constructed back in the early 1960s, it was a focal point for retail in South Oklahoma City and really throughout Oklahoma City. But like a lot of other areas of the city, as well as cities in general, it has a life cycle, and now that it's exceeding 50 years in age, it's kind of declined in many respects from a retail perspective. I mean, it's still a great area. And unfortunately, we've seen a loss of retail. And on the positive side, for our surrounding communities, like the city of Moore, Midwest City, and some of the other areas, they've been the beneficiary of that movement of retail outside of the Oklahoma City area. I look upon this as an investment by the city to help regain that lost sales tax revenue. For example, the city of Moore back in 1992 had a budget of less than $10 million. It's now over 50, so that $40 million increase is greatly attributed to the increase in retail activity in the city of Moore. We hope to regain some of that, not just for Moore. I mean, I think they've done a terrific job with their economic development efforts. I think we can be just as successful, and so this $20,000 contract, I think, will pay great dividends for the city. And in conjunction with the development of a retail center, I've been meeting with neighborhoods throughout the area, and they recognize that it's a two-way street. They need to support those retail establishments to make them successful. They want to do that. I think the property owners and the businesses located along I-240 want to make it a better place. So I think everybody's going to work together to make this a very successful endeavor. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, very good. Larry?
I'd just like to compliment Elaine Lyons. I see her down here, and the rest of the South Chamber. This is a tremendous undertaking and one that the city really needs. I-240 serves not only David's ward in Ward 5, but also serves some of the residents in Ward 3 and also in Ward 4. And we really need a vibrant 240 corridor, and my hat's off to you and your staff and your members for undertaking this, and we look for great things. Just like to encourage people, this is just the first step. This situation didn't arrive overnight, nor is it going to be rectified overnight, but if we persevere with people like Elaine and the South Chamber at the helm, I think we can really see some wonderful things in the years ahead for the citizens of South Oklahoma City. And thank you, David, for your spearheading it. Any other comments?
Comments or questions on the consent docket? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. On to item 7, the concurrence docket. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the concurrence docket? Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item 8, items requiring separate votes. 8A has been deferred to October 23rd. 8B is our second public hearing regarding an ordinance related to schedule of fees on the prices of resale permits.
Marcia Slaughter came last week and gave a presentation on this, and this is to fix a issue regarding off-road vehicle permits at Lake Draper.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 8C is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. We have one person signed up to speak. Peter Austin. Peter, if you give us your name and address for the record, please.
Peter Austin, 5404 North Mueller in Bethany, Oklahoma.
Okay, and you're here on which item?
Item A, that 1909 exchange.
Okay.
What I'm asking is if there's a way that it can be, or a process I can go through to get it off dilapidated to unsecured, or a little additional time to study a possible renovation. I've been searching for a buyer for it, and so.
That's in Ward 6.
Yeah. Well, the pictures sure don't look very good.
No, it has problems. I don't deny that.
Is it your intention to try to rebuild this, or?
What I would prefer to do is to market it, sell it to someone who has more resources and a vision to reutilize it or clear it for future development. I have had a person that was inquiring and interested in it, but I guess when they found out this was coming before the council, they stopped communicating with me. I think they're probably waiting to see what transpires today. That's my guess.
Well, a couple of thoughts. One is to sell it. You might be much better served to have it removed before you try to do that.
Okay.
But you've got 60 days, Charles, or 30 days before?
He'll have 30 days in which to do something, give us a plan, what he's going to do. If he sells it within 30 days, he'll notify us. What this does is actually make the buyers aware of any of this process.
Okay.
And that way, you've got, a full 30 days before anything would happen. And if you'll just stay in touch with Charles, if you sell the property in that 30 days and there's a new owner that comes along, they would engage in conversations with our staff to determine how to move forward, whether or not they wanted to try to save the structure or whether or not they wanted it removed.
Okay.
But you've got a window of time to do something.
If they're seeing progress in the 30 days, either towards marketing or the cleanup.
Yes, we're happy to work with you, but given what I'm seeing here, I mean, this looks like a real safety hazard.
Okay.
And that is our greatest concern, is that somebody might get hurt. So if you'll just stay in touch with Charles, he'll provide you contact information so that you guys can communicate about what's happening in the next 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
We will act on it if there hasn't been additional movement.
Yes.
Okay?
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down.
Anybody else have anything on dilapidated structures? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item D is the public hearing regarding unsecured structures.
Move the items.
Anyone here to speak on unsecured structures? Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item E we've dealt with. Item F is executive session.
We do not need to go into executive session on this item this week. We will get an update from the mediator, I think, in 2 weeks on this issue.
Motion to strike. Motion and a second. Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item G, the executive session on collective bargaining negotiations.
We do need to go into executive session this morning.
Motion and a second, and it passes unanimously. Item 10, claims recommended for approval. Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Actually, that was item 9, I'm sorry. Item 10 is items from council. Larry, you want to get started?
I'd just like to encourage the neighbors in the Windsor Oaks Neighborhood Association to come to their meeting tonight at 7 p.m. Brian Doherty from the Community Foundation will be out talking about landscaping, and he always gives a very compelling program, so I hope to see all the neighbors in Windsor Oaks at their meeting at 7 o'clock at the Windsor Hills Elementary School. Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, David? Meg? Skip? Pat? Wow. I hate to say anything. Item 11 is city manager report.
There are none this morning, sir.
Very good. Item 12 is citizens to be heard. We have a couple of people who signed up. Lee Johnson. Lee, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lee Johnson. I live at 2604 Northwest 115th Street. And I'm here this morning as the president of the Stonegate Neighborhood Association. I'm also here as a concerned member of or citizen of Ward 2. I come to inform you of a problem that we tried to address of a critical care facility that's housed in our residential neighborhood. And I think our thought, well, I know that our thought is that business facilities should not be in residential areas, in zoned residential areas. I come to you to address 5 problems that we run into as it relates to this facility. Traffic problems. This facility sits right between 2 elementary schools. We have a lot of pickup and drop off of children. We have school buses that are running 7 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the evening, and there's a lot of traffic. And then there's the parking of the health workers that work at this house, which causes a traffic problem. Number 2, there's an emergency. We think there's an emergency response problem because we have a number of fire engines or ambulances that regularly come to the house for emergencies when 911 is dialed. So that causes, in our mind, unwanted noise in the neighborhood because of the facility, the commercial facility. Curb observation as we go back and forth. If they open the garage doors, there's a lot of items that are in the garage that's causing, we think, problems as it relates. If there's a fire, we don't see how those critical care patients are going to get out of the house because of it's kind of it's just an unsafe situation. And then we have a question relative to our taxation. If we're living in a commercially zoned area, what does that do with our taxation within our commercial status? I'm sorry. If we live in a residential area, what does that do to our taxation as it relates to commercial items or facilities being there? And lastly, I come to you to ask the question, if this can happen in our neighborhood, and we know that it's happening in our neighborhood, we also know that this is also happening in other neighborhoods in Oklahoma City. And we're asking you to take this problem under consideration and respond to us in some way to let us know what our rights are as it relates to this commercial facility being placed in our residential neighborhood.
Have you had anybody from the city come out and look at this? Have you talked to anybody in code enforcement, or has anybody with the city worked with you on this at all yet?
I have been in, we have been in communication with our councilman. I've also been in communication with Boyd Fulton, and I haven't had any response.
Bob?
We've had email exchanges with Boyd, and Charles has talked with him. Our understanding is there's hospice care, there's less than 5 patients, so it meets our definition of a single-family home. And now we'll meet with him and go over these issues that he's talked about. But the last time our inspector went out there, they were well under the 5 residents at the house.
How do you know that they're well under 5?
Well, our inspector talked to the person that was managing, and I think it was 3 at the time that we talked to him. There were 3 people living in that house. And the ordinance doesn't prohibit, the ordinance says single family is a family or no more than 5 unrelated residents. And so we checked for that, and there were 3. The fact that they're under hospice care doesn't affect the definition of a residential house.
And in fact, doesn't something come into play when you deal with the American with Disabilities Act? The federal government wouldn't allow us to enforce the maximum number of people in a building that have people in it that are affected by that. Is that correct?
There's, I think, actually up to 8 as far as I'd defer to Kenny.
That would be correct. And these folks may very well be classified as disabled persons. We usually have researched that in relation to persons who are recovering alcoholics or drug addicts, but these folks probably meet the definition of disabled too.
But is there any zoning that's required? In other words, if every community, in every neighborhood, if a person wanted to just open their house up and say that I'm receiving patients that's been released from a nursing home or a hospital under that particular status, that I could have 5 people in my house and care for them all day, all night, and that would meet no objection from anyone in any community, the richest community to the poorest community. And there wouldn't be anything that anyone could say or do about it. Is that your response?
Under our current definition of a single family, 5 individuals, if they're being treated or not, have the right to live in there like a single family home.
So is this place advertised as a hospice facility or a nursing home?
There are restrictions about signage. I don't believe there's a sign at this location.
There's no signage there.
And one thing that Bob hasn't mentioned too is this would also, I think, fall under a use unit for, I can't specifically think of what it is, but we have a use unit that this probably falls under when you have disabled persons in an R1 district. This is probably a permitted use anyway. Even if you called it something other than a family, it's a permitted use in R1.
Several years ago, we amended the ordinance based on federal law that there are 2 different residential use units. I can't recall the title, but it may fall under that as well. But we've looked at it a couple of times, and we haven't found a violation.
Mr. Johnson, your concerns could be very valid, but under our codes, we don't view this as a commercial property. Our codes see this as a accepted use in a residential area, wherever that residential area may be R1. And so it could be anywhere in the city this could be in place, and it is not a violation of our codes. And in fact, there are probably some federal protections that are out there also that allow this to happen.
We've been talking about this issue now for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I know of the federal requirements because we have an Oxford house that we initially bought to Councilman Shadid. At that time, he said it's an Oxford house. We recognize federal disabilities. We also have another house, and I hate to bring this out in this manner, but there's another house that's being used by China King Restaurant that's used as a dormitory facility. by China King in our neighborhood. And of course, the commercial area that I talked about initially. But I don't understand how in a neighborhood that's regulated as residential, commercial activities can go up without some kind of notification to the neighborhood.
Well, I think what's coming into play is that whatever they're doing inside the house, even though there may be charging people for that, that's not considered a commercial enterprise, they're still able to do that in the R1 zoning for that neighborhood. Now, they're not exempt from things like parking and nuisance abatement and yard debris and all the other things that are there in R1 are still apply to them. It's just that what they do inside the house is not considered commercial enterprise under our ordinances. So I would suggest that you get Bob and Charles's business card and make sure that these other houses, that if you have questions about them, be sure to get them notified of them so they can go out and check and get you an answer on your concerns with them.
The other two, we've been in communication. We've accepted their response. The one, the facility for critical care, we didn't know that response is new to me.
Well, we'll meet with him, and Charles can go out and look at it again. And
Mayor, are these facilities, or I say facilities, maybe I should just say these homes that are doing business of this nature, are they required to be listed on any type of roll with the city as that type of business? I mean, is there any registration that's required from the city or from the state?
no, they're not from the city. They're considered a single-family use, and they're allowed in that zoning district. There could be some state requirements, but...
And even if they're charging individuals to reside there?
Doesn't matter. It's really not any different than renting a room or a house to someone. That's allowed in residential zoning districts.
These kind of facilities are all over Oklahoma City. I want to assure you, your neighborhood's not singled out. They are all over Oklahoma City. I mean, there are, I don't know how many, I would venture to say there's maybe a couple hundred of them in the city of various kinds. Some of them are hospice, some of them are people in recovery from drugs and alcohol, some of them are halfway houses for people coming out of prison, some of them are for mentally and emotionally disabled people, but most of them are so under the radar, operate so quietly that people don't know about it. You just don't even know they're there. I mean, they're everywhere, and they're, from a macro sense, they're an opportunity in most of the examples I've given you, like people in recovery or people trying to reestablish their lives coming out of prison, or disabled people. It gives them a chance to be mainstreamed in a way that they probably wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. It's too bad that it creates a problem in your neighborhood, but I think most of the problems could be solved by enforcement of the parking, those kind of things, which they're obligated to follow the rules with regard to parking. If they're parking cars all over the place, well, then there's probably something that could be done about that. But in terms of whether or not our ordinances would stop the activity, there's no way. They are literally everywhere. I mean, there are very, very few neighborhoods that don't have some facilities like this, either in them or in the neighborhood that abuts them.
Again, my concern, the disabilities, the rehabilitation, I don't have an issue with that.
Most of those are also paid. The people that live in the disabled group homes that are together, those people that operate those homes receive payment for that. The Oxford houses for people in alcohol, drug recovery, those people pay for that. So the fact that hospice patients have to pay doesn't change their status from residential to commercial. No more than if you rented a room to your nephew or to your nephew's best friend would change it.
I agree. But then my question to the council is, what do we identify in our ordinances to say what's residential and what's commercial? Because we know that there are other businesses that are inside of our neighborhood. We have daycares. I mean, that's a business. We also cannot have hairdressers inside of our neighborhoods. There are requirements that keep that out. So what is the line for commercial, and especially as it relates to taxation? And I'll be quite frank with you. In our neighborhood association, there are complaints that say that, if I'd known that this was going to come up, I wouldn't have bought in this area. And I do know that when Cholinos moved into our neighborhood at the corner of May and Hefner Road, they sent me a message to say that they were going to be serving liquor. And I'm saying, well, there are other locations right there in that same area that serve liquor. Why wasn't I'm notified of that. Why wasn't I notified of what I say, a commercial activity going in that's going to affect my neighborhood? We were never informed. And we thought that we should have been informed, especially in this situation. The other two I'm not concerned about, but this one we are concerned about.
Well, it's not that we don't understand your concern and don't appreciate your concern on it, but and Charles can give you a good idea of what is allowed in R1 as far as a person running a business or whatever, and what would get it to the point where it'd be classified a business or commercial, and they couldn't do it in R1. We can get you an idea of what that's like. The taxation part of it is going to be, you're going to have to talk to the county assessor probably to figure out how they classify something and whether they're paying residential taxes or commercial taxes on it. All right. But please stay in touch with our people and make sure that they have gotten your, I'm not saying we're going to be able to address all of your concerns, but make sure that we're aware of them anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Andrew Mulliken. Again, if you give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Andrew Wayne Mulliken. I first started buying property in Oklahoma City in 1986 at 3212 Northwest 15th. I then bought a house across the street which was condemned at 3201 Northwest 15th. Then I bought two duplexes just north of them, 1615 and 1619 North Land. And then I bought 3201 Northwest 16th, which is why I'm standing in front of you today. On that piece of property, there are two houses, 3201 Northwest 16th and 1709 North Land, which during World War II was the garage for the big house. I had a couple of renters in there. I still have two ladies at 1709. One of them has had a double mastectomy. She's mentally deficient. Her friend is a retired nurse who has cancer of the throat, and I don't intend to throw those people out. The Jordan family, who I rented the big house to, are the source of my being here. They're night people. They sleep during the day, they carouse during the night, steal property, and had trash piled up in that backyard of 3201 Northwest 16th, at least this high, all the way across the back, in the buildings that were nearby. And their rent was being paid by an attorney due to a settlement that the lady had got for some accident working for some governmental, I think maybe the state of Oklahoma. 2 years ago, I wrote a letter to them asking them to move. They thumbed their nose at that. I went to the attorney and I said, what am I going to do? He said, hey, you better be glad you're getting your rent paid. So I left it like it was. On June the 30th of this year, their rent ran out. On July the 20th, I had them evicted by 2 sheriff's deputies. They came, physically threw their material that was in the house out on the yard. Well, this upset them, no doubt. They petitioned the lady next door, and she said, as a good neighbor, she'd let them move in next door. While I'm telling them, you're going to be sorry. Now then, 3 days after they were evicted, a 5-ton air conditioner outside that house was destroyed. I was up there one morning at 2:30. The man involved had on a hard hat with a light on it, was out at 3 o'clock doing his deal, whatever he was doing next door, stealing and moving, piling up property. Your trash people say, and told me, they're the worst family they have ever seen since they've been in this business. I prepared for a trash day on a Monday, trash day being Tuesday. I came down next morning at 8 o'clock. All the bags that I had, the boxes I had, the big blues, had been turned over, upside down, torn. Your trash bin said, we know who did it. They know that we won't pick it up if it's not properly packaged. So I called the action line here in Oklahoma City, and I said, look, I've got to have some help to get this stuff out of here. He said, I will send a truck from another division of the city over there, a city truck, not a waste management truck, which he did. They picked up what was on the curb. He called a lady at the action line, and whoever he called said, don't touch another thing. Let them wait until next trash day. Later, I'm in Edmond working. I get a call from my lady at 1709. She says, they're tearing up your property over here. They've got a bobcat over to your backyard loading a truck of trash. I said, I tell them I'll be there in 25 minutes. She told him I'd be there in 10 minutes. Well, 15 minutes later, the inspector left. And I'm thinking, well, what's going on? I got there. The contractor was still there, still loading the truck. He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, my part of this is $950. I said, I'll be glad to pay the $950 just to get the trash out of the backyard. Not a problem. He said, they're going to fine you $300 in addition to that. He said, they won't call it that, but you're just being fined. Now, why I'm here is this. Why was there no communication between the lady at Action who told me I could not touch the stuff, and why could I not understand why I have not yet seen what the inspector showed me, which was an order from a judge saying if I didn't have that stuff out of there by such and such a day, they were going to come and get it. The day they came was the day before Big Trash Day. I am the victim, and I'm upset about it.
Andrew,
I changed that whole neighborhood over there. I bought that whole block from 15th almost to 17th. And the thanks I get is a jab in the stomach. And boy, I tell you what, I'm unhappy about it. And you can change that. I can't change it. I called some guy in the development something or other, and he said, well, the only help I can give you is extend the time that you have to pay that debt. I said, how am I going to pay a debt? I'm losing $700 a month already. And they've trashed the house, trashed the air conditioner. Now, do you understand?
Yeah, we do. We really do. Charles, you familiar with this at all?
I didn't get the address. It was 1701. What?
The address of the, where the trash was picked up?
North Land is the second lot on the property. The 3201 and 1709 are one plot of ground.
Charles, it's 3201 Northwest 16th Street.
3201 Northwest 16th. Now, don't you guys go there today, because the people that moved out, their trash is still there. It was there last night. I was over there at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon mowing the place and making it presentable again. I'm going to have to sell it. I have no choice. Their 18-year-old destroyed the upstairs room, knocking holes in sheetrock out of spite. Not only that, the people got mad at the lady on 1709 who had fed their boys for 2 years and fed their dogs, which they would not feed. They accused her of calling the police. Their actions was to go to the water meter, steal her water meter, and try to destroy the pipes so they could not be fixed. Her roommate woke up at 3 in the morning to go take a pee, and there was no water. So she called the city. The city very kindly came out, examined it, and said, "It's malicious mischief. We'll fix it." They did. Now, at the same time, there's so much, you guys don't have the time to hear what's going on out there.
Well, we appreciate your concern on this property. Charles can work with you to talk about the posting of the notice and
I
where it
post a
was
notice out
and
there,
all.
and 20 minutes later, it's gone.
Well,
They would not even sign the letter that the court required me to send to them to show up in court. So the judge just automatically said, "Well, it's yours, whatever." And that's when I started the proceedings through the sheriff's department of getting them kicked out. I'm not through with them yet. They come after me. They broke down my fence 4 times after they moved next door to come back and steal other stuff.
well, Charles can work with you on the city issues, code issues, and the trash and everything else. It sounds like you've got a lot of civil issues you're going to have to take up through the legal system.
They don't have a pit to hiss in. They're nothing.
Well, but that's not something we can deal with here, sir. I'm sorry.
I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you for coming down. Joe Sarge Nelson. Sarge, your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Joe Sars Nelson, and I live here in Oklahoma City, 2400 South MacArthur Boulevard. How are you doing, Mr. White? You look good up there, Mr. Myers. It's been a while since I've been here. The article in yesterday's Oklahoman caused me a little concern, as did a few of you probably. I remember back in February, I came up here before I became ill and presented 3 documents to you that never got answered. The first one actually concerned that. I have nothing personal against any of you people. In fact, I like most of you. I even like Mr. Couch. A man that makes $250,000 for a yearly salary equal to the President of the United States, makes more than the Vice President, makes more than the Governor, but runs a town of $500,000 to $600,000. After this investigation is over with, it's going to be bad. So I'm going to try to save you some embarrassment. I'm going to do something that I shouldn't do. And since you got the counselor sitting there, he can give you legal advice, and me as well. I'm going to ask for your resignation. And Mick dodged the bullet, but that's okay. He's been dodging the bullet and passing the buck for a long, long time. I have my stuff, and I've had it for 3 years. This just opened the door. At 3 o'clock today, I have a meeting with the governor. And before I leave this planet, I don't want to ever be mayor. I never wanted to be mayor in the beginning. It was just a door opener. I'm nobody. But I am interested in where my tax dollars go. I pay my taxes. I'm 75 years old. And I'm not afraid of a good fight. I'll fight with the best of them. This here caused me a lot of concern. But it was a wish come true. And I hope, Mr. Couch, for your sake, and I mean this sincerely, I don't wish anything bad of a person. But if there's any truth to this, you better have you a good lawyer, a darn good one. Because I do know some people across the street. Some's going to go to jail, some possibly go to prison, and I do have the proof. Black and white and photographs. I've been putting it together for 3 years. I tried to get y'all to listen to me once, and you sent your stooge to talk to me. I don't buy that. I'm going to talk to you and that man face to face and show you what I had to get it straightened out. That's all I wanted. But now somebody has stepped up to the plate bigger than I am, and I'm going to help him all the way down the line. We got a good city here. I'd like to keep it that way. And like I say, I see you people occasionally. I see Mr. Kelly from time to time at the courthouse. I don't see Mr. Ryan much. I've heard rumors that you and you possibly could be mayor or run for mayor. I mean, you hear stories and all this sort of stuff. I don't want any animosity with City Hall. I have a humble place paid for. I just lost my mother, and I'm on a downhill run. So my fight, you can't hurt me. I'm not afraid of City Hall. Never have been. But I respect everybody's position up there. You got a job to do. But this one right here is going to tear Oklahoma City apart. And it's going to have to stop somewhere. And I wish you well. I really do. Pete, nice to see you all, and I'm going to leave it with you.
Any other citizens to be heard? We have executive session.